All right, I'm gonna keep letting people in as they join us in the waiting room, but we'll get started. As I mentioned, I'm Robin from Alpine Ontario, and we've got a couple more staff on the call here, which I'll get Bill to introduce in just a second. But we just wanted to kick off these parent meetings to get everyone some direct information from Alpine Ontario, get you guys up to speed with what we've been up to, share some of the challenges I'm sure you guys are all finding as challenges in this this COVID year that is our Alpine ski race year. And you guys are one of our biggest stakeholder groups, our parents, so it's really important to engage you guys as much as we can. And we usually do these meetings on Hill in person, and as it turns out, I think these virtual meetings and potentially having them more often are going to be a great option for us. So thanks for tuning in and taking your time to listen to us tonight. Hopefully we're only going to be here for about an hour, but we're open to all of your questions. Apologies to some of you, the event calendar on our website doesn't seem to display really well on iPhones. That seems to be the biggest issue. So if you do have further challenges signing up for any other, we're trying to get it fixed, but if you have any other challenges, just try to go on your laptop to our event calendar. It just seems to be an iPhone problem. We are recording this session, so if you can't be here for the whole session, we'll have it up on our YouTube channel tomorrow for you to review. And we also will try to do these again in March when hopefully we have some more information for you to share as well, because we certainly don't have all the answers tonight. If you do have any questions, you can drop them in the chat and we can address them as we go. As you think of them, I'll keep track of them and bring them up when we get to that point. And so tonight's session is for, it's a bit of a mix. So we've targeted graduating U14 athletes and first year U16 athletes, but we will be talking about, the remainder of our season. So if there are families on the line that are second year U16 athletes, there'll be some relevant content for you as well. So I'll hand it over to Bill, our executive director, who's going to take us through the beginning of our chat, and he'll make some introductions as well.
Thanks, Robin. Awesome. So welcome everybody. It's great to have so many people on the call. We did a U14 call last Thursday, and as Robin said, it's a fantastic opportunity, and these opportunities to engage the way we're engaging over Zoom is something that really COVID has kind of created for us. So, as we have a couple benefits that have come out of these things. Normally, we would be doing these parent meetings in a loud lodge in front of about 30 people, and trying to kind of squeeze it in between sort of the breakfast rush and kids going out to a race and before crew need to go out to volunteer. So it's good to have a captive audience in this, and I think, as parents and families, as really our largest or one of our largest stakeholder groups, it is really great to connect. So thanks very much for joining us. Look forward to chatting here over the next little hour. And there we go. So Robin, you want to? Awesome. So Robin said we have a few people on the call. So we have myself, I'm the executive director. I'm Bill Reeves. I'm sure I've met several of you over the years here. We have Kip Harrington, who's our director of high performance, who many of you I'm sure know or have heard speak in the past. Robin Skinner, who really is the sort of a lot of the machine in the office as far as competition and calendars and programming and everything, and a lot of the communication that goes out to families in this regard too. So Robin is joining us, and she's the one that has a lot of the answers for us, which is great. So thanks, Robin, for organizing this. We also have Kevin Gosselin, who many of you would know. He's a U14 O Cup coach. He's also a high school teacher. He has a ton of experience working with a lot of our kids, whether it's in a U16 program or U14 programs, trying to figure out how to make education work for kids, especially when we go away on summer camps and doing the summer credits that kids try to do. So many of your kids might have already done a summer credit with him this past summer. So he also has Emma, his daughter, is also on the Ontario ski team. So Kevin sees this whole picture from a pretty broad landscape, which is great. So he's going to go through some of the things that will help you with your athletes for school and other things that he'll be able to kind of pass on as well. So it's great to have him. The agenda today is it's relatively tight. The first, I'll kind of go through it here. The first thing that we have is sort of who we are as Alpine Ontario. Now, we kept a few slides in this presentation that we also used in the U14 presentation. I'm not going to go through too many of them in fine detail, simply because we engage, we've engaged you as families and parents before, so you already have a good sense of what Alpine Ontario does and who we are. So I won't go too much, but since these are recorded and put on the website, you can go back and review some of these slides if you wanted any information on it and stuff. So we'll go through that. We wanted to go through a little bit of a COVID update. There's a lot of challenges, obviously. You can just look at your own clubs, how challenging it is with being shut down December 21st or 26th, I guess. And some of the impacts that it's had, but we also wanted to go through some of the impacts it's had at Alpine Ontario and some of the effects it's had on us. The effects it's had on athletes and families and other organizations across the country, just to kind of give a bit of a broad picture of where we're at and what we've done to kind of weather the storm and work with the clubs to try and get through. Kevin's going to go through a big segment on education and ski racing to help out. We'll go through U19 FIS, sort of the basic idea of what it's like to participate in that. Kip will go through some of our high performance programming. And then we'll go through some of our challenges moving forward to complete the season and some of the challenges we might face in the off season. And we'll talk about the remainder of the 2021 season as well. So that's what it is. These are a couple of the slides that I won't go into too much detail, but we have a bit of a mission, not like unlike other sports like hockey and soccer and baseball. We want to provide the leadership and structure for quality programming and affordable programming and communicate the competitive and recreational lifestyle benefits of ski racing to the community. I mean, that's our sort of overall mission. Kip will go through some of our goals, which are a little bit more prevalent to what some of your athletes are going through if they're racing through U16 and getting into FIS, and then what some of our goals for the Ontario ski team and next steps are and how we get there. So he'll elaborate on that a little bit, but that's, in a nutshell, that's where we're at there. There's a lot of things that we do as an organization. I think I'll skip through them a little bit because most people do. So again, you can come back to reading a couple of these things if you wish. Robin, I think we'll bypass that one too. Great. So this is sort of the meat of the presentation a little bit here for me anyhow. A bit of the update of where we stand. So if you look at this map that we have here, this map comes from Public Health Ontario. And, it doesn't, just by the colors, it doesn't necessarily paint the rosiest picture of the kind of zones that we're in and kind of challenges that we still have as a provincial sport organization, not just, isolated in one division. Throughout all of our divisions, we have some pretty good challenges. So, there's a lot of red on that map. There's only two sort of great little green spots on there, and they don't really affect ski and that much. We've got a lot of red around the GTA, and we have yellow up in Grey Bruce. You can see up in the Bruce Peninsula there. But some of the ski hills are open, but a lot of challenges that remain. And so at this point in time, there's the clubs that are able to have started programming. There are a few big clubs that haven't been able to start any programming whatsoever. Clubs, I think, are the main priority for clubs was just to get reopened in the last little while safely, so that we could prove to the province that skiing is a safe sport and that we can all do things smart. I think one of the biggest themes going forward through this should be, when we hit the hill, no matter who we are, our behavior will determine how successful the rest of our season is. I know that if you skied this past weekend, like I did, there was a lot more behaviors that we had to go through in lift lines and whether we were even allowed to enter a building. Where I was ski, I wasn't even allowed to go into the building. So there's a lot of behaviors that we need to do so that we can make sure that the rest of the season is successful. And that comes when we start to train and start to offer some training programs. When we finally start to race, a lot of the behaviors are really going to help us out. So there's a link there that I know we've shared before from the Canadian Ski Council to Ski Well, Be Well. It's a nice resource you can have if you look back at the presentation to look through. So there were, I think one of the things, just to go through a little bit, so the Canadian Tire has, many of you have probably heard of Jumpstart, and they did with Ipsos, they did a poll, a consumer research study about 2 weeks ago. So some of the data has changed a little bit, but not a ton has. And it went out to about 1,000 organizations across the province. It also went to parents in those sport organizations. We shared it kind of far and wide as much as we could to get people to participate. And for a lot of organizations, if your athletes are involved in more than one sport, you've probably seen the effect it's had on other sport organizations that you do. But it's really ground a lot of us to a halt. And so it hasn't, with us being shut down, we haven't really been able to do much of anything except for a lot of our coach education webinars. We're still trying to calendar, we're still trying to apply for different grants and funding and things like that. So it's exciting now that we're open. 10% of the organizations across the country say that they're already bankrupt. 26% of them say that they're facing bankruptcy. If conditions don't change, many of them say that they'll be closed in the next 6 months. And there's still a lot of concern sort of just about sport in Canada and how it's going to affect our athletes. So we're somewhat fortunate that we're in relatively good shape. We went through a lot of processes in the last 10 months or almost a year now, I guess, next week, a year, to make sure that we're in good shape to be able to weather this storm. But we'll get to that shortly here. I think that the biggest thing nationally are kind of what their parents say about their kids. And the bottom 3 points on this stat sheet is what I really want to kind of focus on. 74% say kids are feeling lonely and isolated. 64% said the kids are finding it hard to reduce stress and anxiety. And 69% say kids are showing signs of being less physically fit. So that's really concerning for us as coaches, as sport administrators, and that as far as the impact that shutting down the sport has had on our athletes. So in the next little while, as we open up and programs start starting, our first priority is to make sure that the athletes that get back on snow do it safely. They're in an environment where it's safe. They're doing it at speeds where it's safe. And try to reduce some of this anxiety and allow kids to kind of start to progress and build some of these things up. Many kids haven't been on snow yet. I think most kids, they might have got a couple days in before Christmas, but most have not had much time on snow yet. So we want to make sure that it's safe as possible. So, just a little bit of a recap of what we've done at Alpine Ontario. I think we all know the stories a little bit, but how it impacted us, last March, I remember that day on March 12th when we all had a call with Alpine Canada and we decided to shut down all the remaining races in Canada. That U14 finals was supposed to start that Thursday or Friday, or maybe Saturday. The U16 nationals will cut 2/3 of the way through. We lost all the spring series for any FIS events, all those things. Because of finishing so early, we were down about $100,000 in revenue from canceled events and race fees. We didn't do our annual fundraiser, which obviously has a financial impact too. We faced a bit of a cash crunch to try and figure out how to move forward, but we had a really good action plan with our finance committee and our board to try and get through. We did have to reduce a lot of staff from 10 until 5 full-time employees. We went through any federal government funding that we could possibly get. As I said before, the finance committee had sort of went to weekly calls to make sure, instead of monthly calls, to make sure that we stayed viable and stayed on mission and on point. Our biggest creditor or biggest payment account payable that we had is to Alpine Canada. And so we worked with them to make sure that we were on side with them and paying them back any money that we owed them. All of our member clubs were paid off for the 1920 season. And so we really worked hard to make sure that we got to a position where financially we're pretty strong. We're down a lot of revenue this year, so it's been challenges. We've had to fundraise for the Ontario ski team to get them through the season, but we've been pretty successful to date of being able to do that, which is great. And we've been going after applying for a great deal of grants from the Trillium Resilient Communities Fund, for sport hosting grants, Sport Canada funds, even accessing things like the Canada Summer Jobs from the federal government. So that's where we're at. One other exciting thing that we also did, you'll see we also applied for OPSI funding, which is the Ontario High Performance Sports Initiative, which is a rather large presentation that we did a couple of weeks ago. And it will really allow us to take our high performance investment in the next little while and really accelerate it. And it's a bit of a game changer for us as an organization to be able to do that. So we've been pretty busy doing a lot of this work. Robin and Kip and myself and the board's been very supportive on it too. So and we've also had great relationships with the clubs, and they've really helped us through this with guidance and leadership and just being good stakeholders with us. So with that, I think through all of this, since last May, when we started when we started thinking about return to sport for summer camps, I think the main guiding principles that we have constantly sort of gone after is the health and safety of our athletes and all of our participants, whether it's coaches, officials, parents, families, spectators, athletes, providing quality training environments in a safe manner, and also educating our clubs and coaches, officials and parents. Those are the three guiding principles to all of our return to sport. And to back those up, we've come out with protocols for return to sport, which is just mainly return to training, return to competition, return to learn for all of our coach education courses that we run. We've had COVID mitigation plans that are built just for projects for traveling. We have a COVID attestation form that goes through our registration site, so we know that we can track and analyze what we've done for in case anyone gets COVID and how we react to that. We have a safe sport system that we've worked with other stakeholders in Alpine Canada to make sure we're aligned with. And our new registration system with Snow Reg has really helped us able to do that as well. So, those are some of the steps that we've taken afterwards. As I said before, I think some of the critical key was some of our alignment with Alpine Canada that we had. It's always been a bit of a strained relationship with Alpine Canada, but I think in the last 10 months or a year, with a lot of new leadership there, that we've actually made a lot of inroads and a lot of strides with Alpine Canada. We do weekly national update calls where we talk about anything from athletic development to FIS calendars to any projects that we can do to safely operate. Also on coach education, as I said, projects, and also identifying, high performance athletes. In the past, we weren't listed as a high performance, or Ontario ski teams weren't listed as a high performance athlete. We had that. Alpine Canada was pretty integral to work with On the Podium and Sport Canada to make sure that we got those athletes a high performance status so that it could actually travel when we were shut down as well. So it's been great alignment there with ACA, and we've been pretty happy with that lately. So I think that's, we can answer some questions towards the end. That's probably the easiest way to do it, so that we don't disrupt the flow too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it on to Kevin, and he's going to go through some of the education in ski racing, and then we can go through the thing and then answer questions as we go through at the end. Kevin.
Thanks, Bill. I'll intro the education component. So this is something that we've worked on in collaboration with a bunch of different partners over the last probably 3 or 4 years since the U16 HPP program was started 4 years ago, to address high performance sport and education. And especially this year, I think it's education has been a huge piece of everyone's worry for our kids. So it's especially when high performance sport requires more time, potentially away from school. So we did create, and the link at the very end of this document, an AOA education document. I think it's 70 or 80 pages long. that has a lot of information about how to proceed with your athlete and high performance sport in regard to education. So that's going to be linked at the end, but we're just going to give a quick review of some options moving forward for some of your athletes in regard to education and high performance sports. So there is some sports schools and academies out there. Most of you are probably aware of the 3 that are listed here. Bill Carruthers, I believe, is in Richmond Hill or Markham. And it's a multi-sport school, as well as National Ski Academy in Collingwood and Pretty River Academy in Collingwood. So those are examples of schools where a lot of kids can practice their high performance sport and get an education at the same time. One thing that some high school students are doing is taking a 5-year option with split semesters. That's something that some of our athletes have done in the past. One thing we've certainly been learning about this year is the blended learning option, online versus in person or both. So COVID, one of those potential blessings that could help alpine ski racing and high performance sport in the future is the option for kids to do school online for either the whole year or a portion of the year. So that's going to be an interesting development moving forward to see how that continues to flesh out. And I'll let Kevin talk about the summer school option to get some credits out of the way in the summer so that more skiing can happen in ski season. And he's been with us working on that piece of the puzzle with our high performance program for the last 3 years. So I'll let Kevin talk about that.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, I would like to reiterate what Robin was just saying. As if I put my teacher hat on for a minute, the one positive thing that has come out of this COVID thing, like Robin alluded to, was what it has done is it's really forced teachers all across the province to develop and figure out how to develop their or deliver their curriculum in more creative and unique ways, which has been really positive for a lot of us with athletes in the programs, because teachers are becoming more flexible. They're being forced to be online more. They're all offering alternate ways of getting the work completed and getting the credits. So I think, yeah, that is definitely one of the big positives that's come out of COVID. There aren't a lot, but I think that is definitely one that benefits our young students and athletes. As Robin mentioned, the last 3 years, I've been involved offering a summer school course for the U16 athletes. I recognize a lot of people and faces on the call here, and I've worked with some of the athletes already, and some of the older siblings of the parents. So it's nice to see everybody again. And so what I've done personally is I kind of flip back and forth between 2 grade 10 courses. So what I offer is a grade 10 credit for the first year U16s. I know they're going into grade 9, but it's not a problem taking a grade 10 course. So I offer in alternate years 2 grade 10 credits so that they can get two credits that are mandatory or compulsory for their graduation out of the way during the summer months while they're doing their dry land and maybe a bit of skiing and things like that. Hopefully skiing again this year. So what I usually do is I alternate back and forth between the civics and careers course, which is a grade 10 mandatory course, and then the history course, the grade 10 academic history course. So this year will be the turn for the academic history. And I usually start it right around the beginning of May. And I try to have it all wrapped up by the middle of August. I like to spread it out a little bit more over the course of the summer, which allows the athletes to have a little bit of flexibility as far as getting work completed on time. I'm rather flexible with timelines because I know they all have unique schedules and different things that they have to adjust to, whether it be that they're still in school with a full-time heavy workload or not. And, so they can work through the months of the summer or get started a little early in the spring. with the idea of having it pretty much wrapped up and completed by the middle of August. So I've been able to do that with the school board that I currently work at here, the Catholic board up in Collingwood, and they've been really great at you know, just letting me do my thing and offers lots of flexibility. So it's a nice way to get an extra credit out of the way for these athletes as they start to move into the, you know, more serious, more committed end of the ski racing side of the world, so that they can, you know, once they move into the FIS ages, they can sort of look at having either more spares in their schedules or be able to complete the requirement to graduate on time, or like Robin said, through the 5-year program. There really is no set, fast, direct way of completing the education side of it. Each school is a little different. Each athlete is different. So I think the more options you as parents have to help to alleviate some of the concerns and anxiety around education, the better. So this is just a nice little way for us to try to make that a little bit easier for you, with you know, getting those couple of credits out of the way. If they were to take a normal summer school credit at with one of the school boards, typically it lasts for about a month, and it's usually about 4 or 5 hours, or even more, up to 6 hours a day. So I don't want to stress those kids out as quite that much. So I try to go with, while they're in the spring months, when they're still in school, about 2 to 3 hours per week. And then I would ramp that up a little bit more to maybe 5 or 6 hours per week through the summer months, so that it's not a big chunk of work that they have to do all at once, and it's kind of spread out over. But I should warn you, you know, and you know, this is teaching, you know, speaking from experience, and some of the parents on here would know what I'm saying here. Some students are really well motivated and can get their work done on time and stay with the class. Others, they suffer and they have a hard time staying motivated to get the work completed and to motivate themselves to complete it. And you know, that's a harder aspect, and that's where you'd need to kind of come in to assist me in order to get those assignments and worksheets completed on a weekly basis. But for the most part, we've been very successful. I haven't lost any yet, so we've been successful with getting all those kids through the last 3 years. And I'm happy to take it on again this year. I really enjoy getting to know the kids as a coach, as a teacher, and you know, even as a parent, you know, as a co-parent, because as we all know, it takes a community to raise children and to get them through this lovely sport. And you know, I'm thrilled to get to know them all and to help them along their way in any way that I can. So that's why I'm involved, and I've been fortunate enough to be part of this program for the last 5 years, and I'm excited to be able to stay with it as long as you'll keep having me. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer now or later on by any means.
Thanks, Kevin. That's great. It's a great value to have you on the call, because I'm sure there'll probably be some questions in regard to what our plans will be, which is a bit of a moving target. But you know, we do plan to have some sort of programming if we can, and at minimum, if kids are keen to get some education out of the way this summer, in anticipation that hopefully next winter will be one where we'll be on snow a lot, then that's another great option for them. So thanks for that, Kevin. I'm sure there'll be some questions for you for sure. But we can, for now, we can just move on to the athletics component of what we wanted to talk about tonight. So I'll turn it over to Kip, who's going to talk about our high performance programs, and then we can get to all of your questions.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming and giving us the opportunity to talk to you. This slide, I'll get to this in a second. It might seem a little fantastical right now, given that we've hardly been able to ski, so I don't want to focus too much on that specifically, but provincial sport organizations, what we are and what we do are pretty well defined, very well defined in the system of Sport Canada and by the government of Ontario, the Canadian Olympic Committee. And we have 3 pillars or in the guidelines in Ontario, and those are grassroots development and high performance, and those are pillars. So obviously of equal stature, and grassroots programming by nature is in the clubs and to a large extent development. U16, really is more of a development stage, but it's sort of the entry point into high performance programming. What goes into running a provincial sport organization now is quite something. It's come a long, long way since I started coaching. The government does support us quite a bit, but they have metrics and they have a lot of policies and procedures and metrics they expect us to adhere to. On the high performance side, it's not just a matter of doing these things. We need to do them well. And as Bill said, we applied for funding for high performance funding, which was quite a process and is involved a lot of work with Alpine Canada in terms of how we operate. So, getting back to our goals, this is probably not the most pressing thing today, but this plan was in the works before COVID hit and has been for a while and has been evolving. And just to say quickly, our goal is we want to have the best skiers in the world. And that might not apply to all your children, and it might not be everyone's goal, but the effort to provide that type of programming will benefit everybody. So how we arrived at developing world junior champions, I had a meeting with the new president of Alpine Canada, and her mandate when hired by their board of directors is to get their house in order, raise money, and win. And she said that one of their goals is to change the culture from just people trying to make the team, but actually trying to win, to be the best in the world. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because we're always just trying to get people onto their team. And I started looking at our goals. And so what we've done is we look at, if we want to have a 19, 20-year-old that is among the best in the world, we need to go back at least 8 years and decide what we're going to do. And so that really drove our high performance plan. Obviously, and we can probably go to the next slide. Obviously, with the challenges in front of us, we need a bridge year, and we need to try to recover from this. So we might not be able to cut straight to what we wanted to do in terms of just natural building from what we have been doing, but this should give you an idea. We'd like to offer 3 camps, 2 in the summer, 1 in the fall. Fitness testing, conditioning programming, which is largely driven through, broadly speaking, through the Canadian Sports Institute, but also heavily driven by Sarah Applegarth and largely in practice, and Active Life Fitness in Collingwood. We also want to help those athletes. Obviously, they're not in that region, and so we have some work to do there to provide tools. But these are the benchmark events. We're looking at OCUP, U16 Nationals, Can-Am, and International FIS Series, like the Whistler Cup, but there are other ones. And that, broadly speaking, is the goal of the program. What we probably need to do this year is, if we can travel, and I know this is more what everyone's kind of wondering, once we get through the next few months, what will we do this summer? How will we do it? And we don't know, if we'll be able to travel. I'm concerned if the rest of the world is ahead of us with vaccines, we might not be able to travel until our children are vaccinated, but we're not sure. And we will certainly do everything we can safely do. But for example, I've looked into booking, 6 weeks of lanes at Zermatt, and to try to cycle groups of kids through. I'm not sure, if we'll be able to, but I think that seems possible, but we're going to try to be inclusive. I mean, obviously we don't take more than 20 kids on a camp, but we do intend to try to do our best. A lot of people have been asking, how will we identify and select these kids? And that is a wonderful question. and all sports will be asking themselves the same. It's a huge challenge. We are meeting with our provincial sport organization partners from different sports to share ideas about how they're doing it. I know it's going all the way up to the national team, who will need to select new athletes that have not had opportunities. So we don't have clear answers on that, but we'll be working with the clubs and doing everything we can to keep this all moving forward. Next slide, please. So, you know, many of you will have kids going into FIS next year. And this, you know, one of the reasons we created the U16 program was to create a bridge to bring kids out of their clubs and put them with kids from other clubs. Obviously best with the best, but just the simple fact of doing that, you know, has really helped, you know, to encourage kids to move on to FIS. It might seem like a big, scary thing for the kids, but it's not. What FIS is the International Ski Federation, and once kids turn 16, and if they enter that stream, those points give them a world ranking, and basically, so it's an open category starting at 16, and they all start with 999 points, and the goal is to just lower them over time. Some of the things with FIS racing is those that are trying to aspire toward the Ontario team and national team, of course, there can be pressures, but there isn't really that nonstop trying to qualify for the next event and get into things. It settles down a bit. The teams are a little smaller. The athletes that do continue seem to be a little more like-minded, and it's a really great experience. Like I think that a lot of the kids that go on to do it, you know, there aren't the same crowds at the bottom of the hill. There's a lot of the pressure is relieved, and it tends to be a time in their careers where they really, all the work they've done at, you know, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 starts to come to fruition. They have more time to focus, and they start to really get the reward of getting good at it. And so I really encourage families and kids to continue to give it a chance, because this is where you really get the benefit of the reward of the sport. That's all I have to say to that. Some of the challenges we have moving forward are, as I alluded to, we have kids that have skied a lot somehow. We have some kids that have skied a little, and some kids that haven't skied at all. And so, you know, this is not uncommon in Canada. I've been very frustrated, and we have been speaking to anyone that'll listen at government and anywhere about the fact that Canada is the only nation in the world where ski racing exists that is not currently ski racing. And, you know, we're not COVID deniers. We take it very seriously, but we've had good mitigation plans in place from the very beginning. And we're excited that now we're going to get a chance to use them. But it's also been very frustrating to see the rest of the world move around us. And I know, you know, there are frustrated people, and we share that frustration. And we know that this hasn't been fair or equitable, that some have had opportunities and some have not. Whether through programs or just having the opportunities to go off on their own. And you know, fairness in sport is one of the critical things. And so we feel the kids' pain, and we want to help, basically. So one thing we can do quite easily is, or not easily, but we can encourage fitness. And this is, you know, as I've said to anyone in our high performance programs, fitness isn't a sometime thing. It's not a summer thing. It is an all the time thing for athletes. So this is just a culture thing that we want to encourage in our programming. And we also want to increase the focus on skill development. Feel that kids, by the time they get to, they're graduating from U16, that those fundamental skills should really be hardwired. And, you know, I'll be honest, I think we need to do better with this. We could go to the next slide, please. So this very, very quickly, and I know I'm taking up too much time. So what do we want to do this year? A lot of kids haven't skied, and I know that we get a wide spectrum of opinions on, you know, should we race at all? You know, is 1 month enough time? We get some people thinking we should be racing next week for U16, and we need to give a month for kids to get back on their skis. We know that in other sports that there's a lot of pent up anxiety and just desire to get out there. We know that there are a lot of injuries in sport right now. So we need to provide the right opportunity. We want everyone to focus on the right things. I'm going to draw your attention to this free ski volume during training. This 40-50% for athletes in U16. This comes from a lever study. And this is pretty consistent across most national models that, and I've heard from some people, well, my son or daughter is a really good skier, so they don't need to do this. Well, that's not correct. A good program for athletes of this age will spend 40-50% of the time working on technical things. And so in Ontario, the thing we recognize is we don't have big mountains. So we might need to have more modified environments just to engage them versus just gates and versus just free skiing. But this whole skill development model of focusing 40-50% is standardized across successful ski racing nations. So that doesn't mean that you need to do a whole bunch at the beginning, although that's a good idea. It could be 40-50% of your day or your week or whatever, but this is important. So we just want to encourage everyone to take the time and the programs and support the coaches in good programming that allows the kids to build those proper movement patterns, allow them to build some confidence, and then ramp it up as we go. And we do want to provide a month before there are any competitions. I know some areas aren't able to compete, and so it will be regional. So there was one last thing on there that I forgot to mention. We will encourage everyone to run skills competitions or skills testing environments. We'll provide the skills that we encourage everyone to use. These are used at Can-Am events. They're used in Quebec. They're used in the USSA. And so we will be supporting the clubs and providing the resources to run those things. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Kip. That's great. So we're happy to take any questions. You guys can add any of your questions into the chat, or I can unmute you. There's one question, I think, from when Bill, you were talking, what does paid back member clubs refer to? I think these are likely outstanding invoices from last year's race fees. Is that correct?
Yeah, so with the particularly with the SOD races that happen, there's race entry fees, and we would collect all the race entry fees and then pay them back out to the club. So that usually happens at the end of the year when all the membership reconciliation is done, and when all of the sort of race entries are collected by usually Suki in the office, and then we would compile those and then pay out the clubs all the entries that they would have had. So that's what that was. So. Yeah.
Thanks. Kip, do you want to take Carolyn's question? Can you see the chat there? For anyone that can't see the chat, Carolyn's asking about 30 days of training before the first race of the season. You're on mute, Kip.
Thank you. Yeah, we understand, but we've discussed this at length and with coaches and everyone, and we are where we are. And as I said, we know from speaking with other provincial sports organizations across sports that there have been a lot of injuries for the reasons I said. And if we can't provide enough time, then we can't race. So we are. It's not preventing clubs from running timed events. Like, for example, in Alberta, they can't race, right, yet. So the Alberta ski team with, new recruits, they're having a timed camp. There's nothing preventing the clubs if, they know their athletes, they're with their athletes, from having timed runs, from having, those types of environments. But for us, in our role, we're not starting before mid-March.
I think something too that needs to be mentioned about part of the reason why 30 days or a month is where we've landed is these clubs just got a chance to open. Some of these clubs didn't operate before Christmas. So this is their opportunity to get all of their levels of programming running, getting their protocols in place. No club at this point can even commit to hosting a race. So we want to give them the opportunity to get operating and doing it safely for all of their membership before we start asking for them to put a commitment to a calendar. So it is a prudent process, we feel, that we're entering into with our partner clubs and resort operators as well, just to give them the time to get up to speed.
Thanks, Robin. Something I want to mention about the racing, no racing again, is just a quick anecdote. I ran an academy in Europe for a couple of years, a little while back, and in late February, we were at a FIS race, and a pretty good level FIS race. And this group of Swiss racers showed up. They were all girls. They were all first-year FIS, and none of them had FIS points. It was late February. They had not raced. They all started right at the back of the pack, and they all finished in the top 15. And I talked to their coach, and they had just been preparing. So, these are kids that are a year older, and they went from being at the back to the front. So I appreciate everyone's perspective, but I also think that a little more training is not going to hurt anybody at this point.
Kevin, David asks for summer school credit. When and how do you apply to do this course? So I know you've given heads up to some of the U16 HPP families from last year, but do you want to expand on that?
Yes, thanks. I will, what I'll do, I think it's probably easiest to work with you, Robin, on this one. What I can do is I'll create a Google form like I did last year to get all the information that I need to submit to my board when it comes to adding kids for a summer school credit. So it's really just that simple. So what I'll do is I'll update the Google form from last year, and I'll send that link to Robin, and then Robin can pass on that link to everybody here on this call or anybody else that might be interested. I've got a list from all the athletes that were in the course last year, so I'm happy to pass that along as well. But it's really that simple. It's quite easy. It's just, I would just need a few, basic information as far as, the address where they live, your school that you're going to right now, or where they're going to be if they're moving into U16, if they're going into grade 9. And then the only real important number is the Ontario education number, which is an 8-digit number that you'd see on their report cards. And if you're in a private school, that can be a little trickier to find, but we can even find that if necessary. So that's really all that's required.
That's great. Thanks, Kevin. So I'll gather some information with Kevin and get that out to all of our U16 families. That's great.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing, we do have lots of time. It's a good time to get the information out about that course now so that people can start planning and preparing what their timetable, what their students or their children's timetable might look like next year. Guidance counselors can manage this one way or another. It's really not a problem for them to add them into take them out of a grade 10 history course that they may have been enrolled in for next year or whatever. And it's probably best for us to get started on it now so that the kids are all ready to go. I'd like to start it at the beginning of May, just to be able to get them into it so that, like I said earlier, they're not feeling overwhelmed by the time August rolls around.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. When will we get more information about the summer high performance camps? There's lots of questions that we need to get answered before we'll have a lot of that content available. As Kip mentioned, he's put some feelers out to see what's possible. But as stakeholders in this decision-making process, as we come to having to make decisions and figure out how to make it work, we will engage everyone for feedback. I don't know, Kip, if you want to add anything else to that.
Well, just that as soon as possible. we're really focused on the next month for right now, but we are definitely looking forward. And it's as you can imagine, it's pretty difficult to plan with any definitiveness 6 months down the road right now, but we will do our best to have information to everyone in a timely fashion.
Mentioned that AOA now supports high performance athletes. Is this the HPP program itself? Are non-AOA HP kids, the club race U16 still considered HPP? I'm not sure, Valerie, what specific comment you're referring to.
I think it might have been the Ontario ski team designation, and I think that's important to be. I'm glad Bill mentioned that, but that is a Sport Canada CSIO or CSI, Canadian Sport Institute designation, and it's very small number. Like Quebec actually, their provincial team, their province and CSI refuses to give them that stature. Alpine Canada worked with us and we were able, so basically we're talking about the provincial ski team and a handful of NCAA athletes. Like there are 16 in total.
Very small amount, yeah.
Yeah, we tried. I submitted a list that went down into U16 and they drew the line much closer to the top of the list.
David asks about needing to express when we need to express interest in attending a summer ski camp. We'll want to get interest as soon as we have the go ahead that we're actually able to do something in regard to traveling. One thing that if any of you on the call were part of the panorama camp late 2020, parents went. So that adds just another level of complication to us planning a project like this. Kip's actually out in Alberta right now, doing a little bit of research into potential places for early and late season training opportunities for Ontario, this season and the seasons to come. So the potential of travel outside of the country isn't as necessary and potentially safer to travel without parents. But this is a COVID. We are going to be living in a pandemic this summer, so it is going to be challenging. So to answer your question, David, I mean, usually we have high performance program content out in March with sort of applications and information due by April. I'm not sure if we'll be able to meet that same deadline, but I know all of you want to plan your kids' summers, so we're going to try to stick to that timeline, but optimistic we can keep it there. Any plans to have the current HPP or U16 full group go to a camp in April or to train together? Kip, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at a few things. The simplest thing would be to try to run training in Ontario, weather and conditions permitting. I have found 2 locations in Alberta that could host us. Quebec seems very difficult, even though it might be simpler to drive there. So the main thing right now, speaking frankly, and I know we're sick of all this, I am too, but with these variants and flying, is it the right thing to go with 40 kids on a plane? We'll see. We need to look at it all, and to find the right venue for lodging and all the different things with all the COVID considerations is a bit of a challenge, but we do have 2 potential venues. And we will, we'll need to make decisions about whether or not we're going to try very soon. And we'll see.
And, maybe what would be helpful from the parents, based on other commitments and you need to make, is that timeline of March and April with the final information makes sense for you. Obviously, we'd all like to know right now what we're going to do, but that's not going to be possible. So we're working on sort of that normal delivery of information based on our previous high performance programs. Hopefully that works for everybody, and hopefully we have something favorable to deliver. Bruce asks about the 30 days on snow. So the 30 days on snow prior to your first competition of the season is in a normal year, Bruce. So we wanted just to show you that in a normal ski training year, 30 days of training is required prior to your first competition. So that's another reason why we're not rushing competitions. So no, we don't want everybody on hill 5 days a week up until our first potential race in March. That's just to give you an indication of what is recommended from a long-term athlete development. And that's, you know, these kids need to have a decent amount of training before they are back on a competition field of play. Not sure if did Kevin, yeah, Kevin's got his email address in there, perfect. Kip, is there any more thought for midweek U16 HPP training camps on the escarpment?
Yes. I think we're trying to line this up, but where we would like to start is with Georgian Peaks, the 8th and the 9th. And we've just sent the information to the clubs. And we would rent, we've done this in the past few years, we would rent basically the whole of Rogers and Minute, and the Ontario ski team and the FIS teams would go in the morning, U16s in the afternoon on Rogers, but the U16 teams could warm up and train on Minute. It's expensive to rent the whole hill. So it would cost more along the lines of what we would pay at a fall camp to rent it. But given that, you know, you're skiing right from the very top to the bottom, which we don't often have opportunity to do, I would encourage everyone that this is really a worthwhile camp. And then moving forward from that, we will like to schedule at least 1 day per week on the escarpment. And we're working with the clubs. They have asked us to give them 2 weeks to get the programming under their belt. And then we'll try to get that going moving forward. Every intention.
Has there been any discussion about using old March break and the new March break for races? We were targeting sort of the March 17th, 18th timeframe to start U14, U16 O Cup racing, which was the old March break. So that's sort of the intention. And then with the new March break in April, you know, we certainly talked about the potential of having some opportunities there, whether that be competition or training, if the conditions allow for it that late in April. I know a lot of the clubs in SOD anyway have been making and have a ton of snow, so the possibility of being able to have some projects in April is pretty high. And if we don't have to travel anywhere in order to execute a lot of our sort of programming goals, I think that's a great thing. So that's certainly a priority if we can make that happen. Chris, we are recording this session and we'll post it to YouTube, and it'll be on the YouTube, our YouTube channel tomorrow. So you can pop on there to get this whole recording. Will graduating U14 athletes be able to participate in spring HPP camp? So that's the intention, that this summer's U16 HPP will be graduating U14s and first year U16s, so that the graduating U16s would move on to either the U19 program, a regional FIS team, Ontario ski team, so that, yeah, the graduating U14s would be a part of that. With racing resumes, do you have a perspective on what limitations will be for spectators at various clubs? Any mitigation plans that we've seen from Alpine Canada and anywhere that's had the opportunity to have racing? There's only been one race I believe in Canada so far this year, no spectators are permitted. And I suspect that if we are able to get any racing happening in Ontario, the public health units would be in support of no spectators. So, and I suspect a lot of clubs will want that anyway, public health unit directed or not. So it's unlikely that we will have spectators. Not sure if I missed any questions rolling down here. There was quite a few, but does anyone have any others? You drop it in the chat or unmute yourself. We are going to do FIS tomorrow, so anyone's welcome. Parents, coaches. We'll talk a little bit about what racing. We talked a little bit about it tonight about what racing looks like post U16. But for those families with some older athletes, or you want to look ahead to see what's coming down the pipe for your athlete, you can tune in tomorrow night at 6 o'clock as well. So U14 can register for HPP camp. So graduating U14 athletes will be able to qualify for the U16 HPP. Whatever that might look like, we don't know what that's going to look like. If it's going to be just an inclusive summer dryland webinar, potential for conditioning camps with some on snow stuff later in the summer. We're not quite sure what that's going to look like quite yet. Whistler Cup, not heard a thing about it, Valerie. There isn't any racing in BC permitted at this point, so haven't even given it a second thought. So I would imagine there's no Whistler Cup this year.
Yeah, that was Canada.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, the link for tomorrow's presentation, if I can get to it in time, I'll drop it in here. But it's on our event calendar. And again, for those of you with an iPhone, it's not working that well. So you just need to jump on your laptop or another device to grab it. But it is linked directly off of our event calendar on our website. I'll just try and grab it here. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, so the link, that Zoom link is for the pre-registration for tomorrow's FIS meeting. All right, if no one has any questions, that's, oh, we got another one that's coming here. I think as always, there always should be club discretion and coach discretion when deciding whether or not to start an athlete in a competition. Every athlete's unique, so I think each club probably has some specific criteria that they would want to have met before permitting an athlete to start. The clubs know the athletes best. One thing that we always ask for prior to OCUP competition is a fitness test, which if any of you on the phone are a part of the program this year, you would have already completed. But I'm sure I know clubs have some other requirements. So it's good to chat with your club to see what they're thinking. But that's one main reason why, again, we're trying to leave racing for a month to give clubs the opportunity to get their athletes up to speed, so everyone can come back to the race environment healthy and avoid as many injuries and filling up of hospitals as possible. Does anybody have any other questions? I appreciate everyone connecting with us tonight. I know it's been a challenging year as a ski racing parent, as a parent in general. Many of you I know have multiple kids and trying to figure out how to keep them busy and healthy and all the things has been a challenging one. We're hopeful that we'll be able to get some great news for you guys for these kids to get on hill together and compete. So I wish you guys all the best skiing with your children and having them prepare for either competition this year or some great training in the summer and in preparation for next year. But our email addresses were on that last slide that I had posted there. So please feel free to reach out anytime to Bill, Kip, myself. Kevin shared his email as well. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. And we'll hope to have another one of these sessions in March to hopefully share some more specifics with you as we learn more, because we learn more and new things every day, as I'm sure you guys are as well. So thanks again, everyone, for your time. We'll stick around here if anyone has any other questions. I appreciate you guys spending about an hour or so with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you on the hills, hopefully. Thanks so much. See you, Jurgi.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kevin.
My pleasure. Nice to see everybody. A lot of familiar faces on this conference. It's great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.